for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Williams, and thank you to Inspector Ware for being here. Inspector, every time I hear you testify, you become more and more impressive. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
In March, 10 more people were indicted for the Feeding Our Future scam, a supposed nonprofit in Minnesota meant to feed children that used $250 million of COVID-19 federal funds to buy luxury cars, real estate, and other unlawful futures. This brings the total up to 60 people indicted. It is considered the largest COVID-19 fraud scheme in the nation. Our agencies must make recouping taxpayer dollars a priority. On July 27, 2023, the Small Business Administration Inspector General issued his report underscoring how vulnerable the PPP and EIDL programs were to fraudsters. Not 3 hours later, did the SBA Administrator's Office release a contradicting report. 3 hours later. Unfortunately, the SBA and the Biden administration have failed to provide a detailed account of how this significant misappropriation of taxpayer funds occurred and how they plan to recover these stolen items, or funds rather. Given the roughly $160 billion discrepancy between the OIG report and the SBA report, it would be pertinent to hear from both parties as to why the discrepancy. Unfortunately, as indicated by the empty chair next to the Inspector General right there, she has declined to come before this committee. The Small Business Administrator, who we talk about small business being the engine of our economy, she was notified in time to be here under the rules, and she has failed the request by the chair of this committee to answer questions on behalf of the American people. Like, where is the discrepancy and why the discrepancy? On multiple occasions, the Office of the Inspector General has described SBA's data tracking environment as informal and ad hoc. As the designated investigatory body for the SBA, the OIG holds the authority to shed light on this matter. Therefore, I would appreciate some insights on the following. Inspector General Ware, aside from the Inspector General's office, do you consider the SBA to be the subject matter experts in fraud investigation?
No.
How much weight should we give to the SBA's assessments of your fraud investigation?
Well, I'd say the SBA is not positioned to define fraud for the Office of Inspector General.
If Administrator Guzman were present, it would have been beneficial for her to provide us with her perspective on why she believes her report is more accurate despite finding substantially less fraud. I wanted to be able to have the dialogue and question both of you. Why the discrepancy? Only in Washington, D.C. would an administrator not show up when there's a $160 billion discrepancy. I mean, how does that happen? The American people want to know why the discrepancy, why the fraud. And the administrator doesn't show up so we can ask questions and get answers for the constituents, the taxpayers of this country. What is the likelihood of the SBA recovering most of that money?
Most of that money is tough to say what the likelihood is. I could tell you that we have a 10-year statute of limitations and we will not stop coming. And I believe that's the case for all our law enforcement partners across the nation.
The American public deserved answers. And we deserved answers from the Administrator Guzman today and her failure to testify alongside you should not go unnoticed. It is a slap in the face to the taxpayers who are out $200 billion. Chair Williams, thank you for holding this hearing. Thank you for making the notifications on time within the rules. And to the small businesses across this country who are on the backside of this COVID and starting to ramp up, it is beyond me why this small business administrator would not come here and testify to the $200 billion in fraud. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and now I recognize Representative LaLota from New York, from the great state of New York, for 5 minutes.
The great state of New York, Mr.
Great
Chairman.
state.
Yes, sir.
I caught myself.
And thank you, sir, for your leadership on this important issue. And it's important that we get down to the issue of hundreds of billions of dollars being fraudulently stolen from American taxpayers. Mr. Ware, sir, thank you for being here and for your leadership and being accountable to this committee and to the American people. Despite the SBA administrator being timely and properly invited numerous times, the head of the very agency with so much fraud in it sadly is not here today to answer our important questions. As a result of the administrator's absence, my constituents can be left with no other reasonable conclusion that the SBA losing $200 billion is